One of the best things about living in Colorado Springs is pretty much every house has some sort of mountain view. So I have some clients in town right now that are in search for houses that have really good mountain views, and wanted to make this video for anyone else who's looking for a house that has an amazing view of the mountains or of the city. If you're new to the channel, my name is Ben, and in this channel we go over what it's like to live and move to Colorado Springs. Also, we are a team of realtors and would love to earn your business, so if you are getting some value out of these videos, go ahead and give us a call or a text. And after you do so, we can go ahead and set up like a phone call or a Zoom call to go over our process and to see how we can best help. So like I mentioned, I have some clients right now that I'm working with that are looking for some houses that not only have good views, but like amazing views. And so it kind of compiled a list of what I think personally are the areas that are going to have the best, kind of most unique views of the mountains, because it really does feel like everywhere you go in the city does have just like a slightly different view of the mountains. So here are my kind of top 5 areas that have, in my opinion, the best views. And as you're probably guessing by now, most of these areas are going to be pretty expensive. So I'm gonna start out with some of the cheaper areas and move up to more expensive as we go. So the first neighborhood that has some really good views is Gold Hills Mesa. So Gold Hills Mesa is located just southwest of downtown Colorado Springs, right near Old Colorado City. And I was debating on whether I wanted to leave this one out of my list of top 5, but I think it warrants a spot because the way these houses are positioned, it's up on a mesa, or technically a old gold refinery. And some of these houses have really unique views because you can actually see both downtown Colorado Springs and the mountains that are right there. So it's positioned where you can see Pikes Peak, and the mountains just feel very large looking out your back patio or whatever it be. And not all these houses over here are going to have good views, but some of the houses on the perimeter are going to have really unique views of the city. So this neighborhood began being constructed in like 2006, so most of the houses are newer, and in general they're pretty unique. They're newer houses, but they do have like a specific style to them, and you don't really find this in any other area in Colorado Springs. And there's some houses over here that have like a deck on top of your garage where you can see downtown Colorado Springs and the mountains. So I think for a lot of people this could be a really good area. So starting price for Gold Hills Mesa is going to be around $500,000, and there are options for both townhouses and single family houses in here. So if we travel just a little bit west, you've got the second neighborhood that I have on my list, which is going to be Mountain Shadows. So Mountain Shadows is going to be located kind of right in between like Rock Rimmon and Garden of the Gods. And as the name kind of infers, this is butted up right against the mountains. So most of the homes over here are going to be pretty well established. Most of the houses were built in like the 80s to the early 2000s, and you are gonna feel that. But the way a lot of these like decks are built, it's positioned where you have a really good view of the mountains, and you're up high enough too where you can look back down into the city. So the houses over here aren't necessarily cheap, but they are cheaper than a lot of these other spots. So you can find houses technically in the like 450s over here. Granted, those ones aren't gonna have the really spectacular views. The houses over here do start kind of around 450 and go up. And the average house I'd say is more closer to like 600,000. And when I was getting some footage for you guys over in this area, I was packing up and ended up seeing some bighorn sheep. So I decided to get some clips of those for you guys. And honestly, this whole area, just being so close to the mountains, you are gonna have a ton of wildlife, as this kind of highlights by me seeing random bighorn sheep on a Saturday in September. So it is important to know though that this area was affected by the 2012 Waldo Canyon fire that came over the mountains and destroyed a lot of these trees. So some of the views here, you're gonna see just like basically dead sticks with all the trees that were destroyed, but hopefully they'll come back. And for now, it still doesn't affect the view that much, but do know some of this area was kind of affected by that fire. Really quick guys, if you've made it this far in the video, go ahead and subscribe and hit the like button. Really helps support the channel. All right, so next up you've got Forest Lakes in Monument. So Forest Lakes is located kind of at the northernmost point of the Colorado Springs Metro and is a newer development that they started building in like 2016, 2017. And honestly, the developers picked a really good spot for this neighborhood because you are butted up right to the mountains and you're high up enough where you can see kind of some more of the city. I remember when this neighborhood was first being built, I was really into skating and would skate this neighborhood all the time. So you're definitely gonna have quite a few hills up into this neighborhood that kind of span from the very bottom and go all the way to the top. And obviously as you go up closer to the mountains, the more expensive it's going to be. So homes over here typically start at around $650K, but there are some sister neighborhoods just to the south that start closer to like $450. So you got a kind of a wide range of prices depending on how good you want your views and what you want in a house. This neighborhood is really unique with the man-made lake that they do have kind of spanning the middle of the neighborhood. And if you're wanting somewhere more mountainous, this could be a really good spot. So if we head back down south, you'll have the neighborhood of Peregrine, which is another spot that I think has some of the best views in the city. So Peregrine is gonna be just to the west of Rock Rimmon and just to the north of where we were at previously in the Mountain Shadows neighborhood. And honestly, going to have very similar feels to Mountain Shadows. However, houses are gonna be a little bit bigger over here and you just have a slightly different view of the city and of the mountains. You're gonna see less of necessarily Pikes Peak and more so of the kind of side mountains near it. But you have some like really cool like white rock formations too that are unique to different spots within the city, and it kind of has a lot of different variants of landscape. So it has some really good views, but then also like a wide variety of kind of geography almost. So homes over here though, like I mentioned, are a little bit more expensive. So they start at around 800,000 and go up to $1+ million. And a large part of that is just because a lot of these houses over here are larger. So I think theoretically, if you found a smaller house over here, it would be a little bit cheaper than that. But typically homes over here are gonna be around 800 to start at. And if you're into challenging hikes, the trailhead for the start of Blodgett Peak is actually in this neighborhood. It's basically a 2,000 feet elevation gain 2-mile hike up to the summit. I did it with my friend Jake back in the spring and has some really good views from the top, but very challenging. So if you like that sort of thing, this could be a good spot to have that right in your backyard. And then the last neighborhood I had to mention with some of the best views is the Kissing Camels neighborhood right near Garden of the Gods. So the way that this neighborhood's positioned is pretty prime. I mean, you have Garden of the Gods essentially framed right by Pikes Peak, and you can't really beat the mix of both of those. Most of the homes over here are going to be a little bit newer and, like you probably guessed, a little more expensive as well. So average price point is gonna be typically around 1.2 million. The special thing about this area really is the fact that you're up sitting on a hill where you can see Garden of the Gods into Pikes Peak, and Pikes Peak does feel really big. So just a really cool location. Definitely going to have a little bit more of like a country club feel with the neighborhood and the HOA. So with this neighborhood, you'll have some amenities like the Garden of the Gods Club and Resort, and definitely gonna have just a little bit more of that country club feel, but it does have some of the best views in the city. So that kind of does it for my top 5 neighborhoods that I personally think have the best views. For any locals watching, let us know what spots you think have the best views. And if you're moving here, give me a call. Would love to hear from you. Now it's mine.